warm welcome. I am the Sterling, and today we'll be playing Going Medieval. In the last episode, we began clearing space in the old street to make room for the new front entrance, starting with the blacksmith, armorsmith, shield workshop, and bower. And we even built a sneaky new building, the armory. And in this episode, still with plenty of buildings to deconstruct, that's exactly what we're gonna do. So sit back, grab a cold one, and let's get started. Right, it's time to deconstruct another building and construct its counterpart here in the new area. And hopefully now with the new update, it actually makes things a lot easier when building. Because as you know, in the past, I've actually had a lot of problem when digging out or constructing buildings. I have to get creative because the settlers are stupid. They love to trap themselves. And then I have to find some way to get them out, which sadly sometimes involves deconstructing things I've already built. But now, apparently the settlers won't do this anymore, and they will actually prioritize the construction and the digging out of things in a much better manner, not trapping themselves. But hey, with some of my constructions, I'll be the judge of that. So what's the first building that we're actually going to deconstruct this episode and then put in the new area? It's going to be this butchery, foodery sort of building that I built in the old area, which consists of a butcher, a baker, but not a candlestick maker. This has all the different types of foods within one building, which I've never been a fan of, especially the fact that half of them are under the ground. And now I've said candlestick maker, at some point we actually do need a candlestick maker. But let's get off the candlestick, shall we? So there's 6 new buildings that will replace just this one building. And they're going to go in this area here. And they're going to be a bakery, a butcher, a groceries, a fishmonger, a dessert shop, and a roastery. Then either side of the street, in front of these shops, I actually want to create a bit of a marketplace, not just for food, but for other resources as well that might be traded within this market. Honestly though, this market is more just for show than anything, as the market stalls are only used for traders coming into the settlement, and at this point they really can't get here. So I'm building the marketplace really for no other reason than aesthetics, but let's be honest, most of Ironhold's been done for nothing but aesthetics. If I drew the line on a marketplace, I'd be in trouble. And then after I've completed these food stores, there's one more sneaky little building that I'm going to build at the very end. But you're going to have to wait and see what that is. Or you'll just skip to the end of the video to find out. Please don't do that. So the first building's going to be the butcher's, and it's going to go right here. And the ground floor will look something like this. Nothing overly special either. There'll just be a butcher's table here on the left, and then some storage here for the carcasses ready to be butchered at the table. There will also be a set of stairs over here on the right to get up to the home above. There'll actually be no food ingredients kept on the premises or any butchered meat, because after the carcass is butchered, the meat is then transferred over to the underground cellars where it's stored nice and cool till it's used in one of the other shops. Now for the home above, which looks like this. And it's got all the things that you've come to expect from one of my homes. Stone table and chairs, a pantry for the food shelf, backgammon table, restitution shrine, and then a bedroom complete with a wardrobe, a quality bed, and a brazier. And that there is the house. Now I just slap a roof on it, add a couple of market stalls out the front, and then we're ready to hit play and let them get to work building it. Day 10 of summer 1380. And there is the butcher's complete. Now I just need to go into the butcher's table, select the production of raw meat, and we'll just set it forever. So the moment we get any carcasses, they'll do what they've already been doing, and they'll chop it up for meat ready to go. But that's the first building now complete. So then what's the next building we must construct? Well, it only makes sense that in front of the butcher's, there'd be a roastery. And so that's what we're going to place right here. And the bottom floor will look like this. It's It's going to have a stove for creating roast meats, stews, anything along those lines. There will also be a stockpile for wood or coal, any sort of fuel for the stove itself. And then over here, we'll actually have storage shelves to house the meat ready to be cooked. You're probably wondering, well, why have I not actually gone ahead and completed this little section? And on both buildings, you're probably going, well, why haven't you also put pottery shelves in so then you can actually turn them into a kitchen and give them the production boost? The reason for this is because a kitchen must have one stove, two pottery shelves, and one butcher's table. So it needs both the butcher's table and the stove to be in the one building to actually get that speed boost. But I don't actually want to have a working stove and butcher's table in the roastery, nor do I want a stove in the actual butcher's, because they're supposed to be separate buildings, and so I wasn't going to bother with the boost. But then I was thinking about it and I went, well, hang on, that's a bit hasty. Maybe there's something we can do. What I'm thinking I might do is come over here and just dig a 6-block hole. Then what I'll do is after they dig this out, I'll then put, in this case, the butcher's table in this hole. Then I can actually floor over the top except for one little corner, and that will then count that as being in this room. Ta-da! We've got the benefit. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing over here. So then that means I better go ahead and add a couple of wall pottery shelves here to the butcher's and a couple over here at the roastery. I'll get them to deconstruct this floor and then dig out 6 blocks to add the stove. And with any luck, this will work. Now the second floor is going to be the home, and it looks like this. And once again, it's got all the standard features that I've been putting in all the homes within this area. So now after slapping a roof on it, and I've already put in our market stalls, there's nothing left to do but get in there, dig out those holes, add either the stove or the butcher's table for these rooms, and let them get to work building the roastery. Day 6 of autumn, 1380. And there is the roastery complete. And the good news is, looking at the room overview tab, my idea of putting the butcher's table under the floor in the actual roastery and the stove under the floor of the butcher's has turned both the rooms into kitchens. So production speed should be nice and quick, which is fantastic. Now I've already gone ahead and set up all the shelving. This one here will house raw meat and smoked meat. This one over here will house herbs. We use herbs for luscious meals. And once again, this one over here is also going to be for roast meat. So now we'll set up the smokehouse. You know the drill. Hit smoked meat. We're going to make 10 smoked meat. I must come into the edit smoked meat tab and turn off both trout and pike because I only want to smoke red meat in the smokehouse. And now we must set up the stove. The first thing we're going to do is lavish meals, and we're going to set them forever. They will make lavish meals until we run out of herbs. Now once again, I need to go to the edit tab and unselect everything that isn't red meat or smoked meat. Done. Next, I'm going to do packaged meals. Once again, do them forever, and it too will only be raw meat and smoked meat. And then finally, meals. Once again, forever, edit that, raw meat and smoked meat. And that's the roastery now set up and ready to go. And our first 2 buildings on the street are complete. I'm really liking the little marketplace that's slowly forming on the main street. I think it adds a bit of character. So now the next 2 buildings that we're going to construct is the bakery and the dessert shop, which are going to go just here. But the first thing we're going to have to do for both these buildings is dig out where we're going to put the butcher's table. So we'll dig out here and just here, just like so. And now we can just go and add ladders to both the holes and butcher's tables, once again to both holes. And now we're ready to start planning out the ground floor of both buildings, starting with the bakery. And its ground floor will look like this. There'll be stairs stairs running up to the next level at the back here, hidden by a little wall and stove. And then within the actual bakery itself, just has a stove, a storage shelf for where we can store wheat ready to become bread. We have a storage pile for our fuel to actually fuel the stove. And then I've gone ahead and put a little outdoor area so then people can sit, relax and eat. And now we're ready to go ahead and do the next level, the home. And it will look like this. The same as all the other homes that I've created in this area. It has a bedroom, a dining room with a restitutionist shrine, and that's backwards. That's better. So a restitutionist shrine for religious needs, and then a pantry with a food shelf. Now all I need to do is slap a roof on it and I can get to work on the next building, and that being the dessert shop. And the ground floor will look like this. And it will look very similar to the bakery. Once again, we'll have a stove somewhat into the wall with stairs running up to the top floor, which will be the home. We've got the tool shelves, the shelf to house wheat and whatever else that we'll be using to actually create tarts and cakes. And then we'll have a storage space for our fuel for the stove. I've also gone ahead and put a little seating area within the building so then the dwarves can come in, grab their cakes, have a seat and eat. Now all that's left is to do the top floor, the home. And it will look more or less just like this. So now there's nothing left to do but slap a roof on the top of this, add the market stalls to the street, and then we can hit play and let them get to work. Day 2 of winter 1380. And that there is the bakery and the dessert shop complete. So now we're ready to start with the next 2 buildings. But before we go and do that, first thing we need to do is come over here to the bakery and set up the stove to make bread. I've already set up the storage shelf to house nothing but barley, but now we just have to go in, set up lavish meals, packaged meals, and just regular old meals, set all of them forever, and then go through and go to edit, clear all, and use nothing but barley. And I'll do that for all of them, just like so. Now, the only reason I selected to create all 3, lavish meals, packaged meals, and just regular old meals, is I'm not actually 100% sure which one makes bread. So, nice and simply, do all 3. Now we can come across the road to the dessert shop, where I also added a fermenting station, as I actually forgot to add one. And curdling milk is something that we're going to be doing in the dessert shop. Other words, creating cheese. So we just click on curdling milk, select forever, and that's the fermenting station taken care of. This shelf here will be for storing milk, as you can see here. But it doesn't look like we've actually got any milk at the moment, as this shelf is completely empty. I'll have to go and have a look what's going on. This shelf over here, on the other hand, is going to house cheese, red currants, honey, and apples. And so on the stove, we need to set up lavish meals, packaged meals, and regular old meals. Same as the other stove over at the bakery. The only difference is we'll only be using the ingredients that I just mentioned. Once again, red currants, apples, cheese, and honey. And I'll be doing that for all 3. And that there is the bakery and the dessert shop set up and ready to go. So now let's get stuck into the next 2 buildings. And they are the grocery, which will produce things with vegetables, and the fishmongerer, which will produce anything with fish or eels. And once again, we must first dig out where we're going to be hiding the butcher's table, just like so. And now we can start doing the bottom levels, starting with the grocery. And it'll just look like this. The entrance will be here. There'll be a stove for making stews and anything else with vegetables. And then there's quite a few shelving units, 1 here and 4 down the back, to house lots of vegetables. As we grow a hell of a lot of vegetables, I want to make sure that this is always stocked and producing. And then we just have a stockpile to house our fuel for the stove itself. And now we can go and put the home on top. And it will look just like this. And it's got everything you've come to expect. The pantry, the dining area, including all the entertainment, and then the bedroom, once again, with everything you've come to expect from the bedroom. And then after slapping a roof on it, it's completed, and now we're ready to start with the next building, the ground floor of the fishmongerer. And honestly, it's nothing groundbreaking or fresh. It's just got everything we need. There's a stove, a shelf to house fish and eels. There's another one over here next to the smoker to once again house the fish and eels. Speaking of the smoker, we have a smoker. We also have a stove, and then 2 pottery shelves finished up with 2 stockpiles tiles for fuel for both the smoker and the stove. Everything we need to smoke and cook fish and eels. And now we're ready to do the top floor, the home. And it too is nothing groundbreaking or special. It's exactly the same as every other home I've done in this district. Once again, we have a dining area with entertainment and religious shrines, a pantry, and then the bedroom with everything you've come to expect. So there's nothing left to do but slap a roof on this one too, hit play, and let them get to work building it. Day 2 of spring, 1381. And there we go. That's now the market district, the grocery, the fishmongerer, the bakery, the dessert shop, the butchers, and the roastery now complete. And I'm really happy with the way that's turned out. I've tried to keep a bit of variety between the buildings, and I think it's worked out quite nice. Given that I've only got a couple of types of actual materials to use, at times it can actually be quite difficult to create a bit of variety between the buildings, and I have to rely quite heavily on different layouts and different positioning of the roofs, more than anything to create variety. Nonetheless, as I said, I think that turned out quite good. In fact, better than I thought it would. And as you saw, I went over to the old area and I've knocked down the original food building. And so that's another building removed from the old district, which is great. It's a step in the right direction. And now we're ready to build our surprise building, which is going to go right here. But before we go and do that, we must first come over here to the grocery and set up the stove. And as per the other stoves, we're going to do lavish meals, packaged meals, and meals themselves. Set them all for forever, and then go through and edit what raw food we're going to actually use. In the groceries, it's going to be cabbage, beets, carrots, eggs, mushrooms, and pickled vegetables. And I'll go ahead and do that for all three. And before we go set up the stove at the fishmongerer, there's one more thing I need to do for the stove here at the groceries, and that's set up pickled vegetables. And we'll set it that they will create 10 of them. And now that's the grocery complete. Now across the street, I must set up the fishmongerer, starting with the shelves. We're just going to house trout, pike, eel, salted eel, smoked fish. And I'll do that for both. Then I'll come over to the smokehouse and I'll set them to smoked meat until we have 10. Then I must come to edit and remove raw meat so we only smoke trout or pike. Now that's done, we can come over to the stove and we'll do lavish meals, packaged meals, meals, and salted eels. We'll set the lavish meals, the packaged meals, and then the standard meals themselves forever. And then I only want 10 salted eels. And once again, I must come into edit and then set it to do trout, pike, and eels. Not forgetting salted eels and smoked fish. And then I'll go ahead and set that up for packaged meals and meals themselves. And now that's the fishmongerer also set up and ready to go. Now, what is the verdict when it comes to the new update and the settlers not getting trapped anymore? Well, honestly, there's some good points and some bad points to this in my experience, even though I haven't really put them to the test, because I wouldn't call these buildings anything overly complicated, especially compared to some of the other buildings I've built in the past. The good news is they don't seem to get trapped anymore. They're prioritizing the correct things to build first. I haven't had any sort of instance where they've been trapped, which is fantastic. The disappointing thing is, though, it takes them significantly longer to build anything now, as there could be a single block that's stopping the process of building something, and the settler that's actually set to build that block might be off doing something or be quite far away, and it takes them a while to get there. And in the meantime, the other settlers nick off, go and train or do something else. And then by the time they build that one block, which then allows the settlers to get stuck back into the building, the day's over and I'm waiting again for them to get started and build. So I've noticed at times there'll be a big chunk where I'm sitting around waiting for them to build one block or one piece of flooring before the entire construction can continue. So I guess I got to kind of take it with the good with the bad. I don't have to constantly monitor the settlers anymore to make sure they don't get trapped and then find special ways to get them out. But the actual building and deconstructing process is now quite a bit slower. But nonetheless, that is a fantastic step forwards. Now on to the special building that I've been talking about. We're going to be building a pub. Yes, I am more than aware it's nothing special or new in this series, as we already have a pub. But guess what? This pub's in the old area, and it's going to be knocked down to make room for progress. And this new pub is going to be significantly longer. I was going to say bigger. So there's nothing left to do but for me to hit play and let them get to work building the pub. Day 3 of summer 1381, and I'd like to welcome you to our new pub, Happy's Long Pig. Ladies' Night is on Friday nights, and on Saturday nights there's a live band covering great old Aussie bands like AC/DC, Cold Chisel, Diesel, In Excess, Noiseworks, Screaming Jets, all the classics. And on top of all this, it sells only the finest of ale and beer. It's the way a pub should be, and it's a great addition to the food district. And yes, I class beer as food. It is a carb. Nothing wrong with the old liquid breakfast on holidays. And now that the food district is complete, we can move on to our next project. Unfortunately though, that will have to wait for another episode, as this is all the time we have for today. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.